We're obsessed with it. It dictates our work, governs our lives. It can even kill. No surprise that we're also constantly inundated with claims on how to survive it. Like an overpass will protect you during a tornado. Lightning can destroy a plane. The safest place to hide during a thunderstorm is your home. But are any of these true?
Whoa! Oh my gosh!
I'm Dr. Jennifer Grady, and as a scientist, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to find out. My mission? Uncover the fundamental forces behind our weather by putting these claims to the test and finding out, once and for all, whether they're myth or science. Water is all around us. It's one of the fundamental elements of weather. Up here, it transforms into one of nature's most beautiful creations, clouds.
Nice and smooth, isn't it?
It's so beautiful.
This is where all of our weather comes from. Flying through these floating giants, you get the impression they're lighter than air. So here's a claim you've heard before. Clouds have no weight at all. But is that myth or science?
There's only one way to find out. We're going to weigh a cloud.
Turns out, there's a plane for that. A Convair 580. This National Research Council aircraft is going to be our scale in the sky.
If you see another airplane, let me know.
10-4.
Clouds are composed of minute droplets of water that have condensed around particles of dust. Knowing the total moisture content in clouds is essential for the research of Dr. Alexei Korolev.
This information is important for weather prediction models, improving of climate models in order to make them work better.
The amount of moisture in clouds is also the key to our claim. To find out how much this cloud weighs, we must determine the weight of moisture in just 1 cubic meter. Then multiply that by the overall size of the cloud. That's where Dr. Mengistu Welde comes in. He uses a sophisticated radar system to measure the cloud's crazy dimensions.
As you fly along, you get this three-dimensional structure of the cloud. You have about 500 meters above us, 500 meters below us. It's about 1 kilometer deep, as seen by the radar.
It's also about 1 kilometer long and 1 kilometer wide.
This cloud is huge.
So now we just need to measure the moisture content in 1 cubic meter, then we'll be able to calculate the weight of the whole cloud. Moisture content is measured by special sensors attached to the wings that detect the size, shape, and density of the tiny water droplets outside.
You can see this reading. It shows that we are measuring here 0.01.
That means, on average, there's 1 gram of water in every cubic meter of this cloud. So, how heavy is it? According to the cloud hunters, this cloud weighs in at 100,000 kilograms. That's 100 tons.
Oh! Oh my gosh. Woo! This busted. Turns out clouds really do have weight and a lot of it.
Our cloud weighs the same as a Boeing 757, a blue whale, or a herd of elephants.
Hey, are you seeing this?
Thanks to our cloud hunters, we know there are billions of tons of water suspended in the air. We also know, thanks to simple physics, that what goes up must come down. Rain, like the clouds it falls from, is shrouded in mystery. How exactly do raindrops form? When do they get released? And what shape do they take as they plummet several kilometers down to Earth? I love the rain. I have to. I'm from Vancouver. Now, most people think that rain is shaped like a teardrop, but is that myth or science? To get to the bottom of this claim, I've come to Manchester, one of the rainiest cities in Britain. On average, it gets about 800 millimeters a year. Rain falls at about 10 meters per second. To get a look at the shape of a single drop, I'm going to have to stop one in midair. And this is the perfect place to do that. Can float a guy like Josh, well, surely a little bit of water can't be a problem, right? If we want to stop a raindrop, we're going to have to figure out the balance between two things. First, the force of gravity pushing downwards, and second, the force of the airstream pushing upwards. So I'm going to get Andy here to fire up the airstream. Like we're getting there. That looks pretty good. Beautiful. But it's still really difficult to see what shape they are. If I'm going to determine whether it's true that a raindrop is shaped like a teardrop, I've clearly got to get right up close and personal. Paul Connolly is a research scientist at the University of Manchester. He recreates real cloud conditions in this lab so that he can study the behavior of rain, including the size and shape of actual raindrops. For a guy with so much high-tech gear, Paul has a totally low-rent way to show me what raindrops look like when they fall to Earth.
And I'm just going to squirt a drop in there now.
There we go. Oh, wow. Now, looking at the shape of this drop, I see something interesting. It's not the teardrop that I was expecting it to be. Instead, it's more of a sphere, almost.
That's right, it's almost a sphere. Now, the reason why is there are two forces acting on this drop. There's its weight, which acts downwards and pulls it towards the Earth, but also there's the air resistance, the air rushing past and the resistance that creates as it moves past the raindrop. And what that air does is it pushes it up against the bottom of the drop and causes it to flatten out, almost like a beef burger.
So rain isn't tiny teardrops, it's tiny hamburgers. Myth busted. Raindrops go through lots of different shapes in their short and dramatic lives, but none of them are a teardrop. Here's another one about moisture in the air. Fog is simply low-lying cloud. Myth or science? Elementary, my dear Watsons. Both fog and cloud are the same thing, condensed water droplets in the air. Now, clouds form when air rises, cools, and then condenses into tiny water droplets. Fog is created the same way. The only difference is the process happens closer to the ground. Now, when the ground temperature is colder than the air around it, the ground actually cools that air, and the same process happens. Those tiny water vapors, they condense into droplets. Only this time, the result is fog. Where there's smoke, there's fire. It's one of those sayings that applies perfectly to nature. Remember when you were a little kid and you were told that if you counted the seconds between a lightning bolt and a thunderclap, that you could tell how far away a storm was? Myth or science? To find out, we're going to need some lightning. 1,000, 1,000. The lightning flash travels to our eye at the speed of light. The speed of sound, of course, is much slower. 1,000. All right, now the key here is understanding the speed at which sound travels, and that's roughly 1 kilometer every 3 seconds. So 6 seconds between the lightning bolt and a thunderclap, well, that means that storm 2 kilometers away. Oh, one more thing. Claim proven. Coming up, what happens if a plane gets hit by lightning? I go to a lightning lab to blow things up and find out. Lightning, born in the heart of storm clouds. Beautiful to look at, but like so many elements of weather, unpredictable and highly destructive. Despite what most of us think, only a quarter of all lightning bolts ever hit the Earth. Most strikes actually take place in the sky, with lightning blasting from one cloud to another. So, here's something to think about next time you get on a plane. What if your flight took you into a lightning storm? On the ground, your chances of being hit by lightning are pretty slim, about 1 in 700,000. But what about up there? Now, supposedly, aircraft are built to withstand lightning strikes. But is that myth or science? To discover that, I've come to Cardiff, Wales, where a group of researchers have figured out how to capture lightning in a bottle. Well, kinda. Oh, wow. This is incredible. What is all this gear?
This is our lightning lab. We generate 60,000 volts and 200,000 amps.
Here at the Morgan Body Lightning Lab, scientists like Dan Mitchard can create the real thing, all part of their quest to work out exactly what lightning does to an aircraft.
So here we have the main components, which is a capacitor bank. And these big blue boxes here are our capacitors. And these are what you'd normally find in your everyday electronics, just much bigger. We generate a worst-case lightning strike scenario.
Where do we stand?
Well, we stand on a big metal wall on the other side of this lab.
Good thing, because 200,000 amps of lightning is pretty destructive. Here's what it looks like when a worst-case lightning strike hits a computer mouse. And a telephone. And a piggy bank. So, what happens when a lightning bolt strikes the carbon composite that forms the skin of an aircraft? This is what is covering the airplane.
Yes, yeah, and this is where the lightning will strike, is on the surface of the aircraft.
A typical bolt of lightning moves fast, really fast, almost 100,000 kilometers a second. To capture it, you need a specialized high-speed camera. This one films at a wicked 31,000 frames per second.
You ready?
Yeah.
So let's go.
The lightning bolt has literally ripped apart the carbon fiber, one of the strongest man-made materials on Earth. If this were the skin of a real airplane, it would be catastrophically damaged.
Okay, so here it is frame by frame. And you can see here the carbon fiber peeling back.
Oh my gosh, it's like a banana, just in both directions. I would not want to be on a plane experiencing something like that.
No, definitely not.
But Dan's not done yet. Now it's time to hit an entire plane, or at least a model of one. What happens next isn't what I expect.
So we'll give it a go.
The lightning enters the nose, then seems to disappear until it comes out the tail. What gives? What gives is something called a Faraday cage. Every plane has one, and in essence, it's a network of copper mesh built into the carbon fiber skin of the plane. When lightning strikes, it is redirected around the outside of the plane by the cage. That means everything inside the plane, that's you and I, is protected. I recognize this.
Yeah, so this is a copper mesh that can act as a Faraday cage.
Our first piece of airplane skin didn't have this layer of mesh, and we saw what happened there. Yikes. This time, we're going to add the Faraday cage to the carbon composite and see what happens when we hit it with another 200,000 amps of lightning.
So what you can see here is that the Faraday cage, the copper mesh that we had in, has dispersed the lightning energy, and the damage is just very superficial. And you can poke it in to see that it is just on the surface.
And really the damage is just to the mesh and not to the underlying skin.
If this happened to an aircraft in flight, the plane would be perfectly safe. When it landed, they would patch over this and it would be ready to fly again.
Amazing. This claim is proven. Even if your plane is hit by lightning packing millions of volts and hundreds of thousands of amps, rest assured, you're perfectly safe. Okay, so a modern-day airplane is pretty safe. But what about good old terra firma? Everyone's heard the claim that you shouldn't take shelter under a tree during a thunderstorm. But is that true or false? Turns out, it's true. Trees are prone to lightning strikes because of their size and their shape. They're also awesome conductors of electricity from the sky down to the ground. But what if you're a few meters away from the tree when it gets struck? Should be pretty safe, right? Ow! No, wrong. Turns out lightning is so powerful it can actually jump from the tree and strike anyone in a 3 to 4 meter radius. Ow. We might not be so safe hanging around outside during a storm, but surely we're out of danger when we're indoors. Inside the house is definitely the safest place to be during a storm, but it's not 100% safe. Turns out lightning can flow into your house through anything that conducts electricity. Computers, appliances, a phone line, even the plumbing. And if you're touching any of these things when it does, the electrical charge could hit you. Apparently, one guy even got zapped sitting on the toilet. Bummer. Up next, what can cricket chirps tell us about the temperature? And seeking shelter from a raging tornado, is an overpass a safe place to hide? They look harmless, but with enough heat and moisture, these towering giants can give life to one of nature's most feared phenomena: tornadoes. When they touch down, tornadoes destroy everything in their path. So here's a claim that could be the difference between life and death. A highway overpass is a safe place to hide from a tornado. Myth or science? To figure that out, I've come to a facility capable of creating the largest man-made tornadoes on Earth. This is WINDY, the Wind Engineering, Energy and Environment Research Institute. It's home to scientist Maryam Rafan. She may look pretty laid back, but check out her ride. Maryam doesn't just study tornadoes in a lab, she chases them.
I love our lab. It's fantastic how we can make a tornado in there. But you have no idea how powerful a tornado is until you see one.
Every summer, Maryam heads to Tornado Alley, a corridor of destruction that runs through the southern United States.
I need to be in the field to gather information about tornadoes firsthand. So that helps me to understand how they really work and how damaging they can be.
All the data Maryam collects out here helps her create precise storm models back at WINDY. It makes her the perfect person to help me sort out our claim that a highway overpass is a safe place to hide during a tornado. But to understand the destructive power of tornadoes, you first need to understand the power of wind. And I'm gonna be the guinea pig. Right, Maryam? Fire him up. At 10 kilometers an hour, it's pretty hard to read a newspaper. But it's no fun for Maryam until the furniture lifts off at 30 kilometers an hour. By the time Maryam has ramped it up to 60 kilometers an hour, it's impossible to hold on to anything, and I'm getting worried that I'm going to lift off. But high-powered winds are nothing compared to the complex mechanism at the heart of a tornado vortex. actual tornado. The feeling is amazing. I mean, it's a small vortex, but it's really, really powerful. And if this were a real tornado, it would be going 3 to 4 times faster, could be 200 times as big. So when a tornado like this has you in its sights, is an overpass a safe place to hide? To test our claim, we've arranged to build an overpass to scale out of styrofoam. The plans are fed into a computer that orchestrates a series of precise cuts. And in no time, we have our model.
The other one.
Miriam puts one sensor near the overpass to measure the overall speed of the tornado. I place another one underneath. Overpass looks like the perfect shelter, a concrete bunker to shield you from the chaos unleashed by this force of nature. But is it? Inside the control room, the data start flowing in. What are we getting here in terms of numbers?
Yeah, so what we're measuring, right, 55, 60 kilometers per hour.
But wind speed isn't the only information coming in. Windy's computers are also capturing real-time data on the unique characteristics that make tornadoes so deadly. Wind turbulence, wind shear, gusts, and downbursts. But what I'm really interested in is what's going on underneath the overpass.
This one is showing us, the under the overpass, and you can see
It's higher
it's
under
higher.
there, yeah.
Exactly.
And as we watch, those wind speeds underneath the overpass reach their peak. It's almost double.
It's almost double, exactly.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Around the overpass, wind speeds are about 55 kilometers an hour. But underneath, they're a whopping 110 kilometers an hour.
What happens is that you have the flow coming towards the overpass, and there's this limited area, and it's like acting like a tunnel. You have the tunneling effect, so the flow is squeezed, and as it squeezes, the wind speed increases.
It really is a lot faster. Myth busted. An overpass isn't a safe place to hide during a tornado, and in fact, wind speeds increase dramatically under here. Plus, you're at a higher risk of being hit by flying debris. We may think that keeping track of the weather is a strictly human pursuit. But is it? Hear that? Right, it's crickets, mostly males, and that chirp that you hear is them rubbing the edges of their forewings together. Now, the crickets, they use this sound to woo the ladies and scare off other males, but I've heard that you can actually tell the outdoor temperature just by counting those cricket chirps. Science fact or science fiction? I have just the person to help me sort that out. Dr. Peggy Limon is a keen observer of the natural world. She's also a scientist at the National Center for Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado. So temperature is right up her alley. and she's got the perfect way to test our claim.
Well, it's pretty simple. We measure cricket chirps per unit time. All we need is a thermometer and a stopwatch.
In order to get a clear result, Peggy also needs to collect data for an entire month.
Enough to get a good spread in temperature and a good spread in cricket chirps to see if this relationship is real.
Peggy uses her own backyard to record cricket chirps at different hours of the day and night. Her system? Count the number of chirps in 30-second blocks. At the same time, she charts the temperature to see if there's any correlation. It all sounds pretty simple, but it isn't, even for an experienced scientist like Peggy. Every night there's a cricket concert in her backyard, and counting individual chirps takes weeks of practice. Eventually, Peggy gets the hang of it, and the numbers start flowing in.
Well, we really lucked out in the last 30 days when I've been collecting the data. We got a really good range of temperatures.
Peggy takes the actual temperature readings she recorded and plots them on a graph. And then she does the same with the cricket chirps.
There we go.
When she brings the two sets of data together,
Adjust the edges here a little bit.
boom, look at that. That's incredible.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, the chirps almost perfectly mimics the temperature in Fahrenheit. And it works beautifully in Celsius, too. They're like little cricket meteorologists.
They are.
Like everything in nature, there's an underlying pattern. Crickets are cold-blooded, and their metabolic rates are related to the temperature of their environment. The colder it gets, the slower their metabolism, and the less they chirp. Claim proven. Turns out you really can tell the temperature just by counting a cricket's chirps. Coming up, it's beautiful and it's white, right? Or is there more to snow color than meets the eye? And does colder snow make a louder crunch? I head for the Rockies to find out. Of all the things clouds create, my absolute favorite is snow. Snowflakes form when tiny ice crystals collide and stick together. When they're heavy enough, they fall to the ground, and that is where we pick up our next claim. If you've ever walked to school on a winter's morning, surely you remember the sound that your boots make on the snow. Well, supposedly, the colder the temperature outside, the louder the crunch. Myth or science? To uncover the truth, I'm going to need a proper glaciologist, someone who knows all about snow and ice. While I spend the morning climbing to meet my mountain man, it turns out he's driven up. All right, I guess he has an excuse. Tad Pfeffer is a leading expert in the physical properties of snow, and he's created a tailor-made experiment to test our claim.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. First of all, we need snow of a couple of different temperatures to compare. Now, this is going to be our warm snow site. I know that this snow is at 0 degrees C. This is wet snow. It's got a little bit of liquid water in it, so I know it's exactly 0 degrees.
Makes sense. To make sure our crunching is consistent, Tad has the perfect tool.
My little snow crunching boot came from a self-picking machine. And you can operate that.
All right. So
yes,
cute.
it is. Science cute.
Science cute. All right. The plan is to measure the loudness of a boot crunching here in this warm snow, then compare it to a crunching boot in much colder snow.
Yeah, okay, that's working.
We're going to take a number of measurements in this warm snow to get an average loudness.
48.2. Okay, 46.7. 53.7. That's good.
So what sort of average decibel reading did we get out there?
We had about 40 to 50 decibels.
Okay, and that was our warm snow. So if we want to get something colder, am I gonna have to snowshoe all the way up there?
No, I've got a place that's much colder than up there.
This is the U.S. National Ice Core Laboratory. There's over 17,000 meters of ice in here from all around the world. These cores carry a record of the Earth's atmosphere over thousands of years, giving scientists a unique perspective on our changing climate. It's also the perfect location for the second half of our test. So we've got exactly the same experimental setup as up on the mountain. I guess the only variable that we're looking at here is temperature.
Temperature, yeah. It's a lot colder now. It's about minus 38.
Using the same microphone set up at the same distance from the snow, I get to work with Tad's self-kicking boot. Doesn't take long to see and hear that the colder snow is louder.
That sounded different.
That's different, yeah.
90 decibels compared to the 50 decibels in the warmer snow. But why the difference?
These crystals look just like they did when they came out of the sky. They're small, they've got very sharp edges, and the ice that the crystals are made of is very stiff.
At cold temperatures, ice crystals are very brittle. When the snow is compressed, they rub together and break. That's what causes the crunch. In warm snow, the ice crystals are rounded and soft. When you step on them, they just slide quietly past each other. It's kind of the equivalent of if you were to step on, say, a bunch of dried pasta noodles versus a bunch of cooked pasta noodles.
These are the dried noodles.
Claim proven. The colder the snow, the louder the crunch. Okay, so we know what snow sounds like, but what about its color? Here's a bit of a brain burner for you. Snow is white. Myth or science? It seems pretty obvious, right? I mean, look around me. Snow is white, right? Wrong. To understand why, you've got to start with snow's key component, water. All right, I've melted the snow, and the results are clear. Just like the liquid in this pot. So why does snow look white if it's just frozen water? To answer that, you need to understand two things. First, you are going to need a prism. If you use one of these to break down white light into all of its components, what you see are all of the colors of the spectrum. Second, you need to know that when white light strikes an object, like my skis, we see that they're red because that's the only color of the spectrum that's reflected back to us. What makes ice crystals so unique is that the light spectrum stays intact when it hits them. Gets bounced around, then bounced right back out again. What the snow's reflecting back are all of the colors of the spectrum together. In other words, white light. So whether it's here in the Colorado Rockies, up in the Canadian Arctic, or down at the bottom of the world, snow isn't really white, it's just a trick of the light. We're obsessed with weather. Not surprising, it's one of the greatest natural forces on the planet. Capable of both devastating power and extraordinary beauty. It's such a fundamental part of life that understanding it is critical. And the more we learn, the more we're flooded with new claims. So I'm not giving up. I've got more myths to bust. Do storms move from west to east? Are SUVs safe to drive through floodwaters? Do snowflakes really take up to an hour to hit the ground? The answers are out there, and I'm going to find them as I continue my quest to separate myth from science.